Here's a day in the life of going to farm school. So I very briefly have mentioned this before on here, and that is that my husband Tate grew up on an almond farm, or as they say, an almond farm. But farming has been in his family for quite some time. They actually started farming turkeys, and then in the 1960s, they planted their first wave of almond trees. And then in 1965, they planted these orange trees that you're seeing right here to sell locally during orange season. Now, because Tate and I want to have a farm of our own someday, I need to learn everything that I can. So we're starting off easy with learning how to farm oranges. Now, because these orange trees are incredibly tall and they bear fruit at the very top, the first thing that I needed to learn how to do was operate this cherry picker / tower. Now, the only machines that I really know how to operate are those that are in my kitchen. So the first few minutes of this ride were not necessarily smooth, but thankfully after a few minutes, it became a little bit easier, and then I got to picking. I mean, from here, it's pretty straightforward because all you really do is just pull off the oranges. However, I will say that if you pull them wrong, you might pull off some of the skin, which I'm guilty of doing a few times. But given that each bag of oranges contains around 25 total oranges, the hardest part about this all is really just the amount of time that it consumes. It's funny because when Tate and his brother Tyler were young, orange picking was a way that they could earn money, and Tyler was always a little bit more interested in doing this than Tate was. Now, the next step of picking oranges is washing their skin. It gets really dusty out on the farm, and so you want to make sure that the oranges aren't dusty and dirty. So once they're picked, they get ran through this contraption, and you kind of have to force them through, so it requires getting a little bit wet. And while these look like a lot of oranges, these really only fill up about a bag and a half. So you really have to think about the time and effort that go into filling up hundreds of bags. In other words, thank your farmers, because a lot goes into the production of harvesting food. Now, once the bag is full, they then get tied up to stay nice and secure, and then it's time to take them on over to where they get sold. Now, because I was already on a roll with operating heavy machinery, it was time to learn how to drive the tractor. Let me just say, it is nothing like driving a car. It's actually really hard. So hopefully I get better at this throughout the year. Anyway, we took that bag of oranges right on over to where they get sold. And that right there is how they're produced. I'll be cooking through a bag of oranges this week, so stay tuned to see what I make.